Welcome to this month's Ask EMBN. Is where we get our heads together and answer all your questions to do with e-mountain biking. And I'm joined by special guest Blake Sampson for this Ask. How you doing, Blake?
Very good, Chris. You know what? I've done my homework. I've looked into it. E-biking. I know some stuff about it, so I'm gonna help.
Yeah, we're all good then. Cool.
But the first question.
First question then.
Yeah, This first question, I don't understand it, so I'm gonna ask you. So it comes in from Dean. It said, "Can I ride my Turbo Levo e-bike in the rain? Thank you."
Whoa.
That's a question.
Yes.
Question I like to be, have the answer for.
Informed about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. As you see, we've done many adventures here on EMBN in the actual hammering down rain. Steve's been all over Scotland, got those bikes absolutely soaked. So yes, you definitely can ride them in the rain. They've actually even got an IP rating on the battery, meaning that the Levo battery can actually be submerged up to about 1 meter. That's not saying that you can go and actually ride your bike through the sea under the water with a snorkel on, but it has got that sort of water resistance to it. I mean, just use your head when it comes to washing your bike as well. You can use a power washer, but just don't go directly aim in the water or the contacts, the motor, battery, things like that, because it is, I would say, more water resistant than waterproof. But yeah, definitely a bit of rain is not going to be a problem.
This next question, Chris, is could help the weather. Yeah. It comes from Jeff Brown. Is dielectric grease okay for battery connections? I haven't had any issues yet with my Levo, but my friend purchased a used bike from a rental fleet and it loses power occasionally. Battery connections have some wear and would be greasy. It would be greased to be temporary fixed until new battery is ordered. So I guess that could also help basically waterproof your connections, can it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, dielectric grease is fine on your battery contacts. It'll definitely stop the corrosion on there. But I'm thinking the question is it actually with the battery itself? I'd go probably changing that motor lead, and that's going to be a lot cheaper than replacing the battery. That'd be my first protocol on that bike, maybe trying that rather than going for the expensive battery. But yes, dielectric grease is a good idea just for general maintenance on your bike, just to stop that corrosion happening on the contact. So yeah.
We got a good question from TILLSY23. You mentioned reliability being one of the best things that happened to eMTB. After reading about so many motors failures, I'm very concerned about the possibilities of the motor failure while I'm 50 kilometers out in Australia, bushland. That's a pretty big concern. What advice can you offer to put my mind at rest? Well, do you know what? If you constantly reading all those places on the internet where they just talk about failure after failure after failure, it can be a bit disconcerting, can't it, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you always hear about those bad situations. I think, you never put on, oh, my motor's lasted for this many miles, but if there's a failure, you're definitely going to post about it on a forum or something like that. And I think all the brands now, be it Shimano, Brose, Yamaha, they all have excellent warranties. So it is, if you do get a problem, you're going to get it sorted. And I think to put your mind at rest, even if your motor does fail, you can definitely just still ride that bike back. It's just going to be a super heavy bike, and if you want to experience what that motor failure would potentially be like, just ride along, turn the bike off, and that's as bad as it's going to be. So easy way of doing that, unless you get a major motor failure where the bearing seize up and you can't actually pedal it, but you could get that with a normal mountain bike. It's the same as if you rip your mech off or snap a chain and you've got no tools.
Something goes wrong with your rear hub.
Exactly, it can happen. It's just a freewheel failure on a standard mountain bike. You've got no drive. So there's potential things can happen on all of it. But as I say, if you want to see what it's like, just turn your motor off, and that's as worse as it's probably going to be. So next question, we've got Nigel Connor, and he's saying, my wife is constantly nagging me about the amount of bikes I have, which are all currently standard mountain bikes. I've been there myself, but he says he has a cross-country bike, a downhill bike, a commuter, and a hardtail jump pump track bike. And he's thinking about selling them all to get an e-mountain bike. And he wants to know, can they really do everything? Surely they can't. And that's a good question. So I think we're going to go a little bit more in depth on that one and come back to you. So Nigel, thanks a lot for that question. That is a great one. Should you sell all your mountain bikes to buy an e-mountain bike? Well, I think an e-mountain bike pretty much can do it all, if I'm honest. Let's break down those bikes that you've got at the minute. So you've got a cross-country bike. Well, an e-mountain bike can certainly do that. Yeah, you might be limited by battery range, but if you get another battery, you can simply go for miles and miles. And it all depends, obviously, on what mode you're going to ride in. So yeah, that's that bike ticked off the list. You've got downhill. Well, an e-mountain bike, in my eyes, I think it's more capable than a downhill bike. It will probably go fast and be more planted than your downhill bike that you've currently got, and let alone, you know, getting to the bottom of those downhill runs on a downhill mountain bike. You're pretty much like, oh, I've got to get back to the top. But obviously on the e-bike, you're going to smash back to the top twice as fast as you possibly could, probably even beat an uplift to the top of the hill. Now, you're going to be getting loads more runs in, and therefore your downhill skills are going to improve. And as I say, that bike actually handles better in my eyes than a downhill bike. You say you've got a commuter bike as well. Well, yes, e-bikes definitely can commute. You might want to swap a few components out on the bike. Think about tyres, gearing, things like that. But commuting on an e-bike, if you've got hills and that, it is the ultimate tool as well. Just make sure you've got a really good method of security, maybe even take it into work. Just do those first few runs, make sure you can do it on a battery. You don't even have to take your charger to work, you know, if you're doing that back and forward within one battery. And then you've got your jump bike. Well, an e-bike definitely can jump as well. It's not so suited for like pump tracks and small technical dirt jumps, but if you take it to a bike park, it can definitely jump on those bigger jumps, and it's going to be a lot more stable and a bit more predictable, and therefore might increase your confidence that little bit more. And once again, you can do multiple runs on these bikes. So I think you definitely need to sell all those bikes and get your e-bike. Now, something we quite often hear on eMBN is that someone has bought an e-mountain bike and they're asking, should they keep that other bike, you know, like a cross-country bike or their trail bike too? And quite often that bike simply gets left in the corner, covered in dust, and you're never going to ride it again. So sell all those bikes and get an e-bike.
Brett's got a question about getting some new wheels for his e-bike, Chris. Is there a certain wheel and tyre width that I shouldn't go below on an eMTB? I have a Thork Meg with a Shock Novatech 42mm outer width rim with a 2.8 inch tyre. It weighs 130 kilos. I was hoping to go for a thinner wheel and save weight without sacrificing too much of the riding comfort and handling. Thanks.
Good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah, as we know, the e-bike relies quite heavily on the tyre and wheel setup, to be fair, to get that, as you say, the comfort and the handling. So if you go too skinny, if you're coupled up with skinny tyres, your rims and your wheels are definitely going to take a beating, as will you as a rider. And especially that rear rim, that is right in the firing line of smashing through rocks. You can, if you've got a light set of wheels, you can pick the front wheel out of the danger zones, but quite often you'll smash that back wheel pretty hard. And I think as well, when you start putting skinny tyres on wide rims or wide tyres on skinny rims, you're really going to affect that tyre profile. And I think that is really important. Suddenly, you know, I've ran skinny tyres on quite wide rims, and you go into a corner and the tyre is meant to be round, but it's quite squared off. And you just tip over that edge and all of a sudden you've got no grip.
No grip.
Exactly. So I think tyre profile really has to be matched. I think it's really important to be matching the tyres to the actual rim width as well. Otherwise, it just simply doesn't happen. And I think with that combined weight of the e-bike on there as well, it's a nightmare. Something you might want to look at is a tyre compound as well. You don't necessarily need super soft compound tyres on an e-bike. Yeah, if you're riding downhill and that style of riding, a soft compound tyre is a good idea. But if you want more range and a faster rolling compound tyre, then look at maybe a harder compound. And then it's about the type of terrain you're riding, really. Just make sure you've got that right tyre on there, the type of riding you're going to be doing. You know, if you're out smashing those cross-country miles and you've got downhill tyres on your e-bike, then you definitely need to swap them out. But I think maybe 2 wheel sets might be your answer, but that can be pretty expensive. And obviously you've got that mismatch of wear going on. You've got that cassette, which is going to wear at different rates to your chain that you're riding, and it is a bit of a faff. So I think just try and get that maybe middle ground. You know, you've mentioned those quite big tyres. Try and maybe go for like a 2.4, something like that. Just a faster rolling, harder compound tyre. It should kind of see you right. But yeah, I don't think skinny tyres and skinny rims is the one for e-bikes personally.
What do you reckon, Chris? The smallest tyre width, 2.5? It's the lowest you could go?
Yeah, I have run Yeah, I've run 2.3s, but I wouldn't want to go too much skinnier on that. As I say, it's a type of riding. I think for aggressive style riding, I think 2.5 is probably your minimum.
Yeah, I reckon.
But if you're riding cross country, then you can get away with those skinnier tyres. But yeah, I don't know, not much skinnier than that.
That was a good answer, Chris. Chris, I got one from Chuck Austin. It says, hey, really love your show and tips. So thank you very much. How do you submit photos of bikes for your show, aka the Bike Vault? And where are you? We are in northern Nevada riding some off-grid goodness. So he wants to show that off in the show.
You want to show it off? I can imagine you do. It sounds like an amazing spot. Well, we got loads of submissions and we get quite a lot coming through social media, sort of Facebook, Instagram, things like that, but we can't actually upload those to our show. So you need to actually use the upload service, which the details for that are up on screen now. And that's got loads of different content subcategories in there. So just make sure you're selecting the right one. You know, Bike Vault, if you want your bike to be on Bike Vault, or out and about, you need to, you know, in your world, it's loads of different bits on there. So just make sure you're selecting that right one. And we want to see all sorts of action. We want to see videos. We want to see you doing jumps. We want to see crashes. We want to see climbs.
Climb of the week.
Not just pictures of just the bikes, you know. Yeah, exactly. So keep it mixed up, and it really could be your next week's show. So keep them coming in. As I say, use that upload service. But I think that is it for this month's questions for the Ask EMBN. We love hearing those questions. If you've got a question, hashtag Ask EMBN down in the comments box down below, and we should get back to you. If not, you can ask that question via the upload service, or even ask us on social media. We do get to see a few of those questions, so we can add them to the show. Get involved down in the comments box below. Give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to us here on eMBN, and give us a find and a follow on social media too. Thanks for watching, and we shall see you next month. Cheers, guys.